Premiere just updated itself like a week ago. So this is the most current version of Premiere, and they moved a lot of things around and they changed the interface. So you're learning at the right time. One of the things to know about Premiere is it crashes frequently. So you've got to save very often when you're working in it. We'll be starting with the new project button right here. You can see since I do video production, I've got lots of projects already created. If I need to go to one, I'd click on that to open it. We're going from scratch. So I click new project. You can change the view here. You could also view as details. These are various places where I've already worked on files. I'm going to name this. I did make a folder tonight. I'm going to save it in here along with all my footage. That's usually the best way to go. A nice organized workflow is important. If you've got photos you're going to be bringing in, make a folder, call it art. If you got video clips you're going to bring in, make a folder, call it footage. So I've named it. I know where it's going to go. I'm now going to click the create button, right? I'm going to close this Lumetri Scopes. By default, you should be, if you go window, workspaces, you should be in the editing workspace. There's different workspaces based upon what type of production workflow you're working in. We're doing editing tonight. And with all Adobe products, you can go between the panels to resize them. So I'm going to expand these a little bit just so you can see what's happening. Just like Adobe After Effects, Adobe Premiere opens up completely blank. It's an empty canvas for you to fill up. You're going to be using video clips tonight, but you could also use still images. You could use motion graphics, whatever. You can import it all into here. So your four main panels are the source monitor, which also has your effects controls in it. The program monitor, which is like the composition window in After Effects. The project panel, which is exactly like the project panel in After Effects. This is where you bring in all your footage, and your effects should be inside that panel. And your timeline is where you're going to do all your editing of your clips. The tools should be vertical next to your timeline because all the tools are used inside the timeline. So you want to keep those two together just to give yourself a faster, easier workflow when you're editing. Some people say, why do I have video editing in my motion design class? And the answer for that is video editing is very easy to learn, and people will just assume you know how to do it if you tell them that you know motion design. So the two go hand in hand. You need to know how to edit video to bring in clips for motion design anyway. So this, like I could teach you video editing in like 5 minutes. That's like the absolute beginner way of doing it. And we're going to start with that in a moment. You've got several ways of bringing your footage into Premiere. You can double click on the empty space in the project panel, just like in After Effects. You can go File, Import, and then choose File from here. Or you can simply click and drag it into the project panel. For tonight, I'm doing that. I'm holding down the Control key, or on a Mac, it'd be the Command key, to select only certain things and skip other ones. I just want these clips. I'm going to drag them into my project panel. And now they're imported. Remember, Premiere crashes a lot. Save frequently so you don't lose work. Here is the basic workflow for editing. Step 1, gather all your footage. Then use only your best takes and the strongest pieces. Use only the parts you need, trim out the unwanted sections and the extra frames. What you take out is as important as what you keep in. How much does your story need, and when is it just too much? These are all questions you ask yourself as an editor. You want to come in on a good frame and go out on a good frame, and then you assemble all your cuts in the order you want to tell the story. Now, remember, not everything goes in chronological order. Some stories start backwards, some start at the middle. That's your choice as an editor. So that's always your workflow, no matter what you're doing. I'm going to organize this. I'm going to make a new bin right here. That's a folder. I'll call it footage. So I'm going to grab my video clips, drag it in there, and then I'll make a folder for sequences, SEQS, and I'll make one for motion design. So I'll call it MoGraph. Now this one clip here is a motion graphic, so I'm going to put it in there. The rest of them should be video clips. So I'm going to open up my footage, and I'm just going to grab this one clip right here, and we're going to import it into the timeline and learn more about video editing that way. So I just randomly picked the first clip. I'm going to right click, new sequence from clip. And what that's going to do is it creates a sequence that's the exact length, frame rate, video aspect, everything for the video that was shot. I'm going to click and drag and put that in my sequences folder. Now I'm going to zoom in and show you the difference between the icons so that you could learn a lot quicker and easier. The purple clip would be a video clip, and the green wave file shows audio. So this is saying this is a video clip. The little film sprockets and the sound wave. This is what a sequence looks like. So I'm going to call this rough edit. Sequences look like layer stacks in the timeline with the playhead over it. That's how you can tell what a sequence is. That is a video clip with audio and video. Now let's take a look at our motion graphic. See, this just has a film clip, so we know it's video with no audio. It's a motion graphic. Everyone see the difference between those three icons? And if you're ever in doubt, you could click on an icon like one of your files, properties. So I right-clicked, I did properties, and I've got everything here. It says where it is on my computer, what type of format it is, the image size. This is 4K video, shot at 24 frames. All the information is right here. Remember, pixel aspect ratio, 1.0 is square pixels, meaning it was shot with a digital camera. And it even has the color bit depth to it. Okay, so your slider here will zoom in and out of your timeline. And I'm going to show you the most bare bones editing in the world. This is a beginner workflow. Here's the playhead right here, this blue thing right here. I'm going to mute my audio just so that there's no problem. You can scrub through your footage like this in the timeline. So if I want the part where the seal comes up onto the deck, I just hover over the edge and you get this red arrow. The red arrow means I'm going to trim that part off. So now it's starting here just before the seal comes up, slides, lifts its tail end up, and I'm going to end it there. So I go to the other edge and I can drag that way. I changed the beginning and I changed the ending. That is the most basic beginner editing there is. Changing the beginning and ending of a video clip. Any questions on that? Because if you don't understand the beginner format, once we move on to the intermediate and professional level, it'll become more difficult. Okay, so you get the idea that you can bring your footage into the timeline and drag from the ends, just like in After Effects, to change the beginning and end of a video clip. So now let's go over these panels. I'm going to double click on the clip I just brought in. This shows you what the raw footage straight out of the camera looks like, okay? That's the source monitor. It's the unedited clip with no effects, and the playhead here indicates where you are for that clip you're watching in the source monitor. The program monitor is what the viewer is going to see. So where I'm at in my timeline is where I'm at in the program monitor. This is where I am in the clip. This is where I'm at in my timeline down here. So I'm going to demonstrate something. I'm going to go to my effects, which are right next to here. I'm going to go video effects, color correction. I'll throw lumetri on there. Go to my effects panel. We're going to cover all this later. I'm just showing you the difference here. I desaturated this video clip, okay? In my source monitor, it still has color. Remember, this is the unedited clip. I put the desaturation on in the timeline. Now you're seeing it desaturated in the program monitor. So literally, you could just drag the edges of each of your clips if that's the format you're comfortable with. So if I bring this clip in here, I can scrub through. Let me zoom out a little bit and choose where I want it to begin and end. And it'll snap to the playhead because I've got the snap clicked on right there. And I could just go like that. That's the beginner way of doing it with the selection tool. So if I want the jellyfish to go before the seal, I just move them in my timeline by selecting them with the arrow. So now it's jellyfish and then the seal. It's picking when you want the clip to start and when you want it to end, then putting your clips in the order you want them to be in. All right? That's the most basic beginner workflow of video editing. You could do that on your phone. You could do that on an iPad. It's the most basic form of it. Source monitor, where you are, if you double click on a clip, see now I'm at the jellyfish. This is where I'm at in that clip. The program monitor is where you're at in the timeline, and it shows you any effects you put on any of those clips that's directly over. The project panel is for assembling your clips. It's always best to make folders, like one for motion graphics, one for footage, one for sequences. If you're going to put music, you'd make a music folder. I'm just going to right click and make a bin for that because later on we will be doing music. I'm going to hit save. These are your tools that you use for editing. And here's your timeline. These over here are the audio meters. So if I unmute my audio track and I hit play, you can see how loud that clip is going to be right there. You can even do it by scrubbing. And it's showing you there's the audio in that clip. That's your basic layout for the video editing. If you wanted to, you could edit a movie or a commercial with just the selection tool, dragging the edges like I showed you. You can do that. It's possible. It's not the fastest way. It's not the most efficient way, but it is a way of editing. And just a reminder, dragging the playhead like this is called scrubbing. We're going to be doing a lot of that. All right, so that's the beginner approach. Now I'm going to show you a couple quick keyboard shortcuts that every editor uses. The left and right arrow keys on your keyboard, if you look over here, you see the time code change. Left and right will take you forward or back one frame. Up and down will take you from clip to clip. So up took me to the beginning of that clip. Down took me to the edge of that cut. Down takes me to that cut. So it goes from cut to cut in your clips. And left and right goes frame to frame. So I'm going to delete these two clips. And I'm going to grab my footage. I'm going to put it all in here, unedited, in a row. I'll explain why in a second. So this is all the footage that I put up for everyone from the aquarium that I shot. And I'm going to hit save. I did not change the in and out points on anything. I just threw it all together. That's why I call it a rough cut. All right. Normally when I'm editing, this is the way I do it for like long format interviews. But if you're doing something like a commercial and you don't need to see the entire clip, there's a more strategic way of doing it. And I'm going to show you that in a second. So I'm going to double click on one of my video clips and it opens in the source monitor. And I can scrub through here. Where I want my footage to start is called the in point. And where I want it to end is called the out point. So let's pretend I want to start on this frame. I can click here. It says mark in. That's set the in point. That's the same as if I just drag the edge all the way to there. I can scrub forward a little bit more. If I want to go out here, I can click on the out point. That's the same as dragging this edge over to here with the selection tool. There's the in, there's the out. Okay, I right clicked on that and I'm going to choose clear in and out. When you double click on the footage to bring it into the source monitor, you can edit it in here and then add it to your timeline. Like I said, this is great for commercials when you only want to see certain parts of it. So let's say I want to start right here. I'm going to click the I key to set my in frame as a shortcut. If I want to end there, I can click the O key. So you could use these buttons, or you can do I and O, in and out, or I and O as a shortcut. Now, this light gray bar right here, this is what the viewer will see. But you can see there's more at the beginning and end. Whenever you're filming, you always want to have extra. It gives you more options as an editor. You always let it run for a few seconds before and afterward. This way you can add transitions and things like that. The extra space to the left of the in point is called the head. The extra space to the right of the out point is called the tail. So it's the head right here. The gray part is what the viewer is going to see. And this part right here that they're not going to see is the tail. Head, what they'll see, tail. You can always scrub with your playhead, or you can hit the play button right here to preview your clip. Now, I edited this. I've got 3 different options of bringing it into my timeline. I'm going to show you all 3 of them and what they do. If I click and hold down on the source monitor and I start to drag, you see a hand. I put it down here. What that does is it brings the video and the audio together. And it's only this gray part right here. I can still click and drag and get the rest of it if I wanted to, because it's non-destructive. So that's clicking on the source monitor and dragging. Now, if I go to this film strip down here that says drag video only, if I click and drag from that film strip, it only brings the video, no audio. If I go to this sound wave and I click and I drag, it's only grabbing the audio. So I can bring the audio and the video, just the video, or only the audio. That's the power of the more intermediate workflow using the source monitor rather than dragging things into the timeline at the beginning. This is good for commercial work, but if you're doing a long format interview or a documentary, you want all your footage first so you can listen to what everybody said and review everything. Everyone see those 2 different forms of editing? Here's my rough cut. It's the full length of all those clips I put up for everybody. I'm going to close that folder. I'm going to go to my sequences. Let's pretend this is an interview. We're doing an interview later on, but I'm showing you something here. So I've got my rough cut. I labeled it. If I right click on it over here in my sequences folder and I choose duplicate, I can name it edit 1, hit the enter key. So now if I double click on it, I've got the sequence for it right here. So let's say I'm going to zoom in on my timeline. Let's say I want to start, I'm going to do my arrow keys to be more precise, trim there, and I want to stop there. I could use my razor tool right here and click there. But the way I edit is I put the playhead where I want it, using my left and right arrow keys to get precise with the clip or clips selected. Say there's multiple ones. I hit Command K. That does a cut where the playhead is. I can now delete this section right here. It's a more precise, efficient way of editing, plus it's faster. You could have multiple cuts in the same video clip. Like if I do Command K, Command K, Command K, I just cut the same clip 3 different times in case I want to put them at different parts of the timeline. No questions? Okay. So you can see in edit 1, I've got some space. I shorten the clip and there's some space. If I go back to my rough edit, it's still unedited. That's the power of duplicating your timelines. This is the full sequence, nothing edited. I right-clicked on it in my project panel and I chose duplicate. I renamed it edit 1. I double-clicked on it to open it into its own sequence. Now I can edit it all I want and always go back to the original. For instance, let's say I delete the penguins by accident and the client goes, you know what? I want those penguins in there. I go back to my rough cut, find the penguins. I can choose Command C to copy and then just paste them in my timeline. Wherever the playhead is, that's where they'll be pasted. Like such. That's the benefit of duplicating this. So if I show the client and they come back with some changes, I would select it, right click, duplicate, and call it Edit To moving forward. So now that you saw a little bit more intermediate way of editing and duplicating your timelines, just that you can always go back to your changes in case the client's not happy with it. That way it's non-destructive workflow. We're going to move on to pacing and rhythm, which are very crucial to having a good edit. Okay, so hopefully those few videos I showed you really spell it out on the importance of pacing and knowing when and where to let something breathe. Like if you're just doing a short YouTube video or something like that, you don't have to worry about it so much, but there's probably going to be a lot of cuts. But that's why the left and right arrow keys to count how many frames matters, and up and down, because good editing, every frame matters. Some things will be a few frames too long, and we'll get into that once we start with the interview that I'm going to be showing you in maybe Thursday. We'll see. I'm going to check my notes. So this is the last part for tonight so that you all have time to digest this before we go into the more complex stuff. These blue boxes over here, this will dictate where things are going in your timeline. So for instance, I'm going to click off the first one and I'm going to hit Command X to cut that. And I'm going to put my playhead right here. This track is selected. If I hit Command V, wait a second. Oh, it's because that was selected. All right. Now if I hit Command V, and I'm going to get rid of these. So it goes one layer below. So one layer above and one layer below. Let's try that. Command V, boom. So put the video in this track and the audio in that track. That's what these blue boxes do. And also watch what's going to happen. If I press up, it's going to take me to the beginning of this cut. And then I press up again, it takes me to the beginning of the timeline. But if I've got these layers selected and I hit down, now it's going to take me to this cut, down again, it's going to take me to that cut, down again, it's going to take me to that cut, down one more time, it's going to take me to that cut. The cuts for up and down depend very heavily on which layers you have those blue boxes checked on. So if I press down here, it's going to go here, and then it's going to go there, and ignore this because I don't have these layers selected. So I go down, I go to that cut, down, I go to that cut. Can everyone see how these blue boxes are very important in the keyboard shortcuts on your timeline? It's also where things are going to go when you paste them. I'm going to go to my motion graphic, select it once, right click, new sequence from clip, because this is a different frame rate. This is a quick animation, and you can see there's multiple parts to it. I've got two ways of editing this. So I'm going to scrub through with my playhead and use my left and right arrow keys to get to where the cut is. So I'm using my right arrow key on my keyboard. I'm going frame by frame. All right, right here. This is crucial. This is whenever you make a cut in video editing, there's two sides to that cut. What do I mean by that? I'm going to move back one frame. Here's the first scene. I move forward a frame. There's the next scene. Can everybody see the difference that one frame makes? Scene one, scene two. Can everybody see that? Here is why this is important. So here's the first scene. There's the second scene. If I'm going to do Command K to cut here, or Control K, I want to be on this side of the cut. What's that mean? That means if I move this somewhere in my timeline, this is the first frame you'll see. I'm going to undo that and show you why that's important. Let's say I'm off by 1 frame, only 1 frame. I hit Command K. So if I move this over here and I move that over there, I'm still just using my selection arrow. Let's go to the first frame. See, it's the wrong frame. That's really important. A lot of people make this mistake with their edits. They have that extra frame, and once you move your clips around, you see that extra frame, and it's going to create a little bit of a jump when it shouldn't be there. So please remember, there's 2 sides to every cut. If this is the first scene, and that's the second scene, you want to be at the first frame of the second scene, then hit Command K. So if I press down, there's my first frame, the one I want. If I press up and I go back 1 frame, there's the last frame. Can everybody see how that 1 frame matters a lot to make sure you get the cut right? And why it's so critical to realize there's 2 sides to every cut that you do? Because that one's going to be a hard lesson, especially when you're piecing together your demo reels and stuff like that. You'll notice that extra frame a lot once you start moving clips around in the order you want to show them. All right, so I'm going to undo that cut. So I would have to be precise with every frame here if I wanted to, okay? But the fast way of editing when you've got something like this, like I said, this was made from a web animation thing. So it's just cut, all together in one big clip. The fast way of editing this, there's a new feature. You select it, right click, and choose Scene Edit Detection. So if I choose that, and I just leave the defaults and hit Analyze, it'll go through and find every cut for me. So whenever you're given a file like this, where there's multiple cuts that need to be done, this is a way of saving yourself some time. A lot of time, actually. When you see how many cuts, I would have had to have gotten precise to the exact frame for this 1 clip. Now picture doing 20 of these in a row, and you see why scene detection is very powerful. See? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 cuts. And each one is precise. Saved me a lot of work. I was just selecting the whole clip, right click, Scene Edit Detection, use the defaults, and click the Analyze buttons. We've got all these cuts to work off of. And I'm going to show you something. If I click and move up, that puts it on another video track layer. If I want, I can move this up to another layer. You can use as many layers as you need to tell your story. We're going to be diving into this. This is very useful. So I'm going to just randomly pick a few layers here. All right, so I've got multiple clips on multiple layers. All right. Now, if I wanted to move all these, up or down my timeline, I could click and drag and select them with my selection arrow and then move them. But I run the risk of missing some things. That's what this tool's for, track forward or track backwards. Wherever I have it hovered over, it'll move everything. So depending on which side I'm dragging from is where it's going to move things. Can you see how that works now? It's all on where you have it in your timeline is what it's going to be moving. That's very useful when you have a very complex timeline and keeping things together. We're going to be going through all these tools later on, again, so don't worry about that. So you saw you can move a clip to any layer you want. We saw the multi-track, track forward, track select button, tool. These eyeball icons. Let's say I click this one on. Anything in this row will be invisible and will not show up in the render. So if I move my playhead here, there's nothing underneath it. This whole layer track is not going to appear. So if I put this clip here, it'll be showing you that clip. Whereas if I turn that eyeball back on, it's going to show you this clip. So sometimes when I'm doing something complex, I'll leave one layer, one whole track with the eyeball turned off, so I can move things up and down to it to keep them in the timeline lined up, but just make them invisible if I need to. Now in the audio section, M is mute. That will mute this entire layer. So, or I should say track. So this whole track right here will be muted, whereas this one down here would be on. You can mute both of them if you want. S stands for solo. So if I only wanted to hear something in this track, I'd hit solo and it would ignore all the other audio layers. So using these settings, like multiple layers of audio, and knowing mute and solo, as well as moving things up to other layers and knowing how to completely hide one full layer in the timeline is very crucial to know for editing more complex pieces. Tuesday of next week, I'm going to do a little recap on this, and then we'll do more advanced video editing techniques. So I wanted you to have this grasp of, the basics. Like if you want, you could just drag like that, or you can move the playhead, select it, and hit Command K or Control K, and then just hit the backspace or delete key to get rid of that. That's the absolute basics when it comes to video editing. I'm going to go back and look at the first 14 seconds first. Good. The cup is proportional to the person. Good separation of your character. You can add in the other keyframes when you want to. For example, so here's the character broke. So what we would do there, we just check your parenting. Foot. Thigh should be parented to the torso or body layer. Arm, is that just a full arm? Yep, okay, so that should be parented to the body. Cup parented to the arm, good. Arm should be parented to the body since it's a full arm. Right should be parented to the body. Body will be left alone. Neck to the body. Head to the neck. Was there feet or no? Okay, let's try. Yeah, I'm losing that foot. Okay, there's the foot layer. The foot should be parented to the calf. That's where we're. Foot, that's the right one. Calf right. Okay, now let's try that. There we go. So foot to the calf, calf to the thigh, thigh to the body. Now your character will work right. And on the cross throughs would be the up. So we'd figure out where the ups and the downs are here. And, get in that calf motion. Let's say right here. We'll add a right there. And as it comes to here, 0. We're working backwards. So keep it at 0 there. There. And again, here it'd be 0. So with that walkthrough, that. And then you just do the same for the other leg. And you just, copy those out. I for that. Good. R for rotate. That's the layer I wanted. Sorry about that. Calf hit R. It's right here. Get up a little bit. Right here, it'd be down at 0. Then it'd go through there. It may need to bend back here a little bit. I'm not sure, but you could look at something for reference. So let's see what that did. Just those few seconds. See how the calves just adding that extra bit of motion really helps push that? Okay, now the other thing that's going to help this is squash and stretch with the torso. So this would be down. Let me hit U on my keyframes, hide those. Find the body layer. S for scale. Non-uniform. We'll put this right here towards near where the waist is. So here we'll go down a little. And on the walkthrough, we'll go up a little. So it's like that. And then the next cross through, it'd be up a little bit. Then the next one would be down a little bit. You only want to do something subtle, nothing too extreme. Now see what that did to the opening. If you did a little bit more, it might show up more, but it's still looking pretty good. So like that's one way of pushing the walk cycle with the squash and stretch as well as the calves. Now with the cup, what if right here the cup falls? Then we go into our next scene. This is looking nice, by the way. So I'm going to save. So let's see, your next scene be. That's just the text, got it. Okay, there's right there. So I'm going to hold down Shift to there. I'm going to split that layer just so we have it at whatever size we need for the next one. What if here, oops. Yeah, I see. So it's going from 100 to 150 when it's off the screen. If I click the word scale, I can select both of them and scale them up. So I'm going to make this a lot larger. Make sure my collapse transform is on in my layers. That. Now let's see what happens if we try and add a little bit of depth to this. I'm going to right click and choose layer styles. Let's see if maybe inner shadow or satin. Let's try satin for this. And then we'll try inner shadow. We can change the opacity. Let's go to full. Let's look at this at 100%. Look what satin did with that little bit of highlight. That's pretty sharp. I actually think that would be pretty good. Do you see the difference with that? You don't have to go crazy with it, but just that little bit of shading. One moment. You could lift the whole screen up. I'm the only one in the room. Excuse me, miss? Yeah, you could just pull that whole screen up. I'm the only one here. I pull it down just in case anyone shows up. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, make it safer for yourself to work all the way up. That's, you know. Yeah. Oh, no. It's just me, myself, and I. Yeah, no problem. No worries at all. You're helping out the school with what you're doing. Okay. No, I'm good. I got my screen right here. I only do that in case someone does show up. They see, yes, there is a class. So, no problem at all. No problem at all. Yeah, stay as late as you need. I'll be here till like 7:30. Yeah. Okay, so we did layer style. We right-clicked and chose satin for there. That helped add a little bit of depth to the cup. So now we're at the next scene. And in addition to what we did with Sarah's, breaking this up into pre-comps might help your render time. Like, if this first part's a pre-comp, this part's a pre-comp, this part's a pre-comp, your computer will be doing less rendering and you'll run a little bit more smoothly. But you don't have to work that way. I'm just showing you a way to, you know, make things a little easier on yourself. Now, I'm just going to scrub through real quick and look at this detail at full res, and then we'll watch the motion at reduced resolution. That's looking nice. I like the texturing. And did you use Lumamats and things like glass to add some displacement to the text in the liquid? Not yet? Okay. Yeah, because you got that other lecture I already did on that to look back on. And if you're going to, you might need to do a grayscale version for a displacement map, but other things may work. Like I think CC Glass worked with the values without having to make it grayscale with like hue saturation. All right, so that's looking pretty nice. So we're going to watch the motion at a reduced resolution so it renders faster. I'm gonna move my render bars just so that it's ignoring everything else. Is there any motion here? Okay, so it basically ends here. Oops. All right. It's just a few seconds to render this then. And while that's rendering, like I said, I'll be here till 7:30 if anyone else has more for me to look at. There's our motion. We already saw the nice detail we had from that effect. Pretty nice. Right, that's that. So we're in here. Okay, good. I'm going to click off the opacity grid just so it doesn't hurt everybody's eyes. And we're going to mess around a little bit because we got some time. I'm going to give you this file for reference. Did some of the stuff I show you tonight help out? Okay. So, coffee swirl. That's right here, okay? I'm going to duplicate it. Command D. I'm going to turn off the audio on the duplicate so you don't have stacked audio. Now, I'm going to go to my effects. I'm going to desaturate this. And we're going to try a displacement map with it. So if I do that, all right, that's grayscale. And I'm going to rename this one. I'm going to call this gray coffee map so we know what it is. And I'm just going to hide it. So if I go to my text layer, oh, you're using some of that as a, okay, I remember that. So if I go here, I do a displacement map on it. Here's my text. So under displacement map layer, we're going to use our map. Zoom in a little bit. We'll do effects and mask. Now you can see the letters getting distorted based upon the values of the coffee. That's one way of doing it. We turn this coffee liquid into a grayscale with hue saturation, and then we put a displacement map on the text and use the displacement from the grayscale of the coffee. So I'm going to hide this effect, and we're going to keep our grayscale map down here. Now let's try, let me hit M. Is there a mask on here? No. There's a mask on this layer though. There it is. All right, so I'm going to duplicate this coffee, Command D. Put it over top. Let's try and copy that mask, M. So I hit M to get the mask, Command C to copy, Command V to paste. And for some odd reason that's not lining up, but I'll just move it to about here. Okay, that's fine for now. I'm going to turn off the extra audio. I'm going to turn off cartoon for the liquid. And then let's try under track matte, let's try Luma matte. Try Luma inverted. And let's copy that hue saturation, see if we need that. Put it back up here. Paste it on. Now we're desaturated. That's not working so hot for us. So we will get rid of that. Let's try CC Glass. Put it on the text. We can hide this duplicate because we don't need it. Turn off Luma Matte. Go Track Matte. So that first idea didn't work. Now CC Glass is already finding a bump map. We use the gray layer that we already have. There we go. Look at what we're getting from that now. We're just using the grayscale duplicate we already have. Let's change that resolution. See that? Now, of course, you could set it to whatever amount. You need some softness. Now, I'm going to dial in my look at full res and then watch the motion at a reduced resolution because you can see how blotchy that type is. You're going to need some level of hard softness there. So, you know, in your 40s might be good. Now, the height, it's how much you want it to displace. and then the amount of displacement. That's all up to you as the designer. So you could try a couple frames at full res and see how that looks. And in addition to that, let's take a look. I'll turn key light off on that type. I'm going to right click, go to layer styles. Let's try bevel and emboss, because we had that before. See, bevel and emboss gives you some shadow and some highlight to it. A little bit of depth and dimensionality. And we can change the color of that bevel. Have a great weekend. So we can, instead of having a white highlight, we can grab from the color of the coffee. And we can do the same for our shadows. And then just go straight down to darken it a little bit. We can increase those values, help them stand out a little bit more. See the difference there? So that helps push that a little. Now let's see what it looks like with all the effects going on. See that? That's got a little bit more pop to it now. This is just adding that satin to that mug. Give it that nice little rim light to it. Working on the calves swinging. A little bit of squash and stretch as he's passing through with his stride. And you might possibly think about some other graphic elements to have in the background of that shot. Even if it's just some texture or something like that. But yeah, it's coming along pretty nicely. So I'm going to give you this as a reference just so you can see how we fixed the rigging and some of the effects that we looked at during lab. That's why I love people coming prepared to LabTime, so I can, it's not me criticizing anyone, it's me helping you push your ideas. Because that's, that's what I'm here for, to give that insight of, decades that I've been doing this. And what we saw from that was CC Glass did not need to be using grayscale values. It just picked up the tones from the color of the coffee, whereas sometimes you do need grayscale for some displacement maps. So when in doubt, just make something grayscale and try it, see if it fixes it. All right, so if anyone has anything to show me over the weekend, make sure you email me and I will take a look at it. And, just keep moving forward, because you've only got like 2 more weeks left to get the final animation in on time for the crit. So have a great weekend and contact me if you've got any questions or you want me to review anything that you've worked on.